Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, the climate guy setting the record straight about climate. Today, July 14th, is Bastille Day. This video is about storming the climate Bastille. July 14th used to be an extremely hot day in the United States. On July 14th, 1936, Indiana reached an incredible 116 degrees. On July 14th, 1954, Illinois reached 117 degrees, and on that same date, Missouri reached 118 degrees. Temperatures this hot are inconceivable to Americans now. Either they've never seen them, or they've been propagandized so much they've forgotten they ever occurred. We're constantly being bombarded by lies about the climate from the press, but none are bigger than their claims about extreme heat. It was so hot on July 14th, 1936, that people were literally dying from the heat every minute or two. And a similar story on July 14th, 1954, when St. Louis reached 115 degrees and people were dying in the streets. On July 14th, 1936, almost the entire country was over 90 degrees, shown by these yellow pins. And the red pins show 100-degree temperatures. There was 100-degree temperatures recorded from coast to coast on that day. Almost the entire Midwest was over 100 degrees. Let's zoom in and see just how hot it was. On July 14th, 1936, many stations surrounding Chicago and Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana were over 110 degrees. Aurora, Illinois, just outside Chicago city limits, was 111 degrees. If this happened now, scientists would say that they are 99% certain that it was due to increasing CO2. But this sort of weather never happens now, and in 1936, CO2 levels were close to 300 parts per million, very low. And it was the same story in 1954. Essentially, the entire country was over 90 degrees, and a huge area of the country was over 100 degrees. There were 100-degree temperatures from coast to coast. That was the hottest day on record in St. Louis at 115 degrees. Let's zoom in on it. Temperatures were well over 110 degrees all through Missouri and Illinois. And once again, the same story in 1934. Almost the entire country over 90 degrees, and nearly half the country was over 100 degrees. And there was similar heat in 1901 and 1980. The 5 hottest July 14ths in the U.S. occurred in 1936, 1954, 1980, 1934, and 1901. What all these years had in common was that atmospheric CO2 was below 350 parts per million. And as CO2 has increased, the heat on July 14th has decreased sharply in the United States. We very rarely have hot weather on July 14th anymore. So now let's look at the fake news we're being fed. On July 14th, 1954, Kansas reached 121 degrees. A couple of weeks ago, Arizona got almost that hot, and let's look at what the press had to say. The press reported that it was a record-setting heat wave with temperatures up to 120 degrees. Everything is literally melting. Temperatures of 120 degrees in Arizona are actually quite common. They occur almost every summer. But the 121 degrees in Kansas in 1954 was pretty extreme. This is one of my favorite ones from the fake news BBC. Summer has only just begun, but a record-breaking heat wave in the Southwest has occurred. Well, June is always the hottest month in Arizona. By July, the monsoons have moved in and temperatures cool down quite a bit. Let's look at the forecast for Arizona for the next 2 weeks. Huge amounts of monsoonal moisture are moving up into Arizona and bringing 4 inches of rain. As always, the BBC has absolutely no clue what they're talking about. Now let's look at Arizona heat. Parker, Arizona is located along the Colorado River and is the only currently active station with very good long-term records. This graph shows the number of 100-degree days at Parker, Arizona every year since 1895. The peak year was 1958 when they had 142 days over 100 degrees. But since then, the frequency of 100-degree days in Arizona has plummeted. It's down by almost 50%. So what about 110-degree days? Well, basically, that's the same story. 110-degree days peaked in 1902 when they had 62 days over 110 degrees. Since 1902, the frequency of 110-degree days at Parker, Arizona has dropped about 50%. And it's not just Arizona. Across the entire United States, the frequency of 90-degree days has plummeted over the last century. The people have no accurate information. Well, just let them eat fake news. Well, we're storming the fake news climate Bastille now and taking our country back. Visit Toto on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been pulling back the curtain on junk science for a long time.